That's it. I got sober in the Santa Barbara County Jail while I was fighting a case of felony evading, conspiracy, and armed robbery. And it all started with a cup of Pruno, which is not easy to make in the conditions in the county jail. However, it wasn't my first cup. It was more like my second or third cup. And I kind of had to take an assessment of, wait a minute, I'm 25 years young. I only have a high school diploma. I'm in a lot of trouble. I'm facing about 7 years, 8 months, 85%. And
Very.
I'm on indigent status and I'm asking for money from my mommy and daddy. And I just said, I'm done. And I literally said that to myself in a crowded room full of guys also fighting charges and fighting time. And at that point, I really just decided, look, I'm 25. I need to do something different than just getting in the cycle that I've been in forever. I had been, I'd say, addicted for about 7 years up to that point, but it really, really went back further to where I had been escaping for so many reasons.
When we begin, we're all looking for the promised land. And in the end, we just need someone to hold our hands. Everybody needs some kind of refuge, something to run to, someone who loves you. I'll be the light guiding you through the night when the stars just refuse to shine. And I'll be your shelter, that safe place to hide, your sanctuary.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Everyone is Addicted. Today's guest, Benjamin, has graciously come on to share his experience and knowledge with addiction. And welcome, Benjamin. It's nice to see you today. And take it away.
Okay, thanks, Jasmine. Hi, my name is Benjamin Christie. I have been clean and sober since February 23rd of 2005. I got sober
Congratulations.
in Thank you. It is still one day at a time. You know, I tell people it's only 20 years. That's it. That's it. I got sober in the Santa Barbara County Jail while I was fighting a case of felony evading, conspiracy, and armed robbery. And it all started with a cup of Pruno, which is not easy to make in the conditions in the county jail. However, it wasn't my first cup. It was more like my second or third cup. And I kind of had to take an assessment of, wait a minute, I'm 25 years young. I only have a high school diploma. I'm in a lot of trouble. I'm facing about 7 years, 8 months, 85%. And
Very.
I'm on indigent status and I'm asking for money from my mommy and daddy. And I just said, I'm done. And I literally said that to myself in a crowded room full of guys also fighting charges and fighting time. And at that point, I really just decided, look, I'm 25. I need to do something different than just getting in the cycle that I've been in forever. I had been I'd say addicted for about 7 years up to that point, but it really, really went back further to where I had been escaping for so many reasons from about
That's
the
what
age of
addiction to
9.
me is an escape because of how from trauma or just stress from life, like it's a coping mechanism. So I can go back to my childhood and say that I had addictions to like watching TV so that I was taking my mind off it. So I totally understand what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is a form of escape because it's one of those things. If you can create a construct in your head of what your reality is, and you can go in there and you're safe and comfortable, you can't go back to that thing that hurt you in the first place. So, case in point, from about the age of 9 till about 15, I was taken advantage of by an older boy, if you know what I mean, and I think you do. Looking back on it, it wasn't something like I was picked on in that sense. It was, we were friendly and it just seemed like he had this new learned behavior, which obviously somebody had done to him.
Yeah, because
Way of
where
kind of
else
like,
you learn it, right?
where else do you learn it? You don't just randomly flip on a TV and, oh, there it is. No, somebody has to show you this. And it's
Especially
kind of
when we
like,
were kids, right? Like they don't have the tablets, so it definitely had to be learned behavior.
It had to be, yes. No social media, no YouTube, no tablets, no streaming, no nothing like that. It was really just a hands-on. And it's kind of like how they talk about Stockholm syndrome. It's one of those things where, hostages, they take other hostages. They don't make friends out of this because it's like, well, wait a minute, like somebody did this to me. And then I kind of kept that secret and pushed it down and would be in a mode of telling everybody everything's okay. So it was a way of just promoting optimism, but at the same time keeping my guard, knowing I had some secret because I had to keep this cool. This is a boy who's older than me, who's a lot more, I would say, popular, but he's quick and sharp at the tongue.
Mhm.
So am I going to be exposed today? Can I deny it? Can I try to push it away? And that went up to about the point of 15, and we gradually went different directions. I had got a girlfriend at that time. And then it was the point where I'm working in extremes, where she says, well, I love you and want to be married to you and have your kids. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm just trying to make it through the next day without the secret being found out right there, too. Because in the 90s, it wasn't like you had a whole wealth of experiences or resources as a teenager. It was
Yeah.
either, if this happened to you, you were either a fag or you were a woman. It wasn't something like people had empathy for this. Well, if you did it one time, and you're showing this behavior again, then you must be that kind of person.
Well, I
So
had a
about the age,
Yeah, I had
go
a
ahead.
friend actually that had similar experience, and he thought that he was a homosexual for the longest time because of that experience, but he really isn't. He's married and has 5 kids, but the longest time because of like what you said, he identified himself as that because he just assumed that that's what he was because of the experience. And like when we're going back, he didn't have the resources that we have now where you could tell a counselor this and somebody would help you, you know?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there seems to be much more openness about this because we're seeing, oh, this is widespread. This isn't just an isolated incident. We're seeing how this is a generational thing where your grandparent might, or somebody's grandparent might have done that to the father and or mother, and they did that to another kid, and then that kid learns that too. So basically, what we learn is that look, this is just pleasure. Whether it's a guy or girl, 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 guy, guy, it's like you're experiencing pleasure, not necessarily desire, but your body is responding to this. And I'm like, I should push this away. However, this feels great. So maybe in some sense, we see how that continues. And for me, at some point, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to put up a big front and decide to just drink and smoke around people and just act like everything is cool because maybe that'll push away the stigma or maybe the questions that people might have about me because I'm not the most alpha guy. I'm not the most masculine guy, especially at that age. And if you
Mhm.
had anyone who was prying or prodding or had any kind of questions, that might lead to another discussion. Well, what's up with Benjamin? Why does he act that way? Why does he do certain things right there? So that
Kids
was
are
the beginning
mean
of my
too.
escapism. What's that?
Kids are like I remember being 15, 16 and kids being like I don't want to like say too much about it because it's so bad, but they were mean. So like
Yeah,
that I can see you just wanting to be like, I gotta be like everybody else because I don't want I was bullied myself. You don't want all the eyes on you and everybody just yelling things at you all the time when they're not even true, you know? After already
absolutely.
experiencing that trauma, like I I commend you on being able to make it through that. Like that's a hard go, I guess you could say, even so young, right?
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, it was tough because it was keeping the weight of this on me at all times, knowing I can look back now. It wasn't something that it was my fault. It wasn't something where I took the blame. It was just look, these things just happen, and at the same time, I chose to just kind of be closed with the secret instead of revealing it because to me, I'm thinking if I reveal this, I'm thinking this might be ammunition that somebody else could use against me at this point because again, this is a kid that's in our inner circle that my parents know, that everyone around the schools know
Oh,
at the same time. So this could open up a whole can of worms. And I would rather just default to like, man, let me just escape. Let me be safe in this corner, this realm right here, rather than just have the big tale or the big reveal right there.
oh yeah. I get you 100%. I always find like a little corner whenever I go places because of the bullying that I had where I can like hide from people because I have agoraphobia due to being massively bullied, right? So like of course you don't want that. And if it's somebody that's in your group and they're like, seen as cooler than you really don't want them to start saying things. Oh my gosh, especially as a teenager, that would have been, oh yeah, you'd want to escape. Like I wanted to escape myself because of what I went through, but what you went through, that's like, oh yeah. Oh yeah, I would want to escape more than anything else in the world.
Yeah, for sure. And through that realm of escape, it's really realizing that's when my sense of self-worth kind of went away, because now I'm so more likely to go along with this person doing this behavior. I'm so more likely to justify, well, not let me just steal a candy bar from the store at age 9, not just steal one, go back and do it again. And then I'm justified in going in my mom's purse, not just taking a dollar or two, I'm taking $20 at a time. And then sneaking out of the house at night to go up to the local supermarket when they're open 24 hours and I can get a gallon of ice cream and a couple of candy bars and I am just escaping. And that
I
is
used
where
to
I
do
could
that
tell the
too.
weight gain came in. Yeah. Yeah, because with
Uh,
comfort food, there's no judgment. That food isn't shouting at you or yelling back at you. It's just saying you're safe right here. No one needs to know about this. No one needs to know about that right there. So it's one of those things I look in hindsight, like there must have been more than just me just going through this too, because and also I'm wondering like, am I just invisible? Because clearly something is doing where I'm ballooning up in weight, where I am just kind of sharp at the tongue, where I want to say things that are funny to try to get the shine off of me in case there's any kind of questions. But clearly I'm like, I'm going through something and maybe just everyone else is too, but it just kept kind of felt like I'm invisible at the same time with this sense of, hiding a secret right there.
oh yeah, and they always say the secrets make you sick, right? Because it just goes on in your head all the time, and you're so worried that it's gonna come out, and then if it does come out, what are the ramifications gonna be, right? Especially at that young, right? Like we don't like our brains don't fully develop until you're 25. So at that age, you're like, and with you battle as a teenager with your confidence and your self-esteem already. So that, yeah, like I think I just I can't imagine, and I don't think you're alone in a lot of things because like I said, I know several people that have had that same kind of thing happen to them, and they felt the same way. Do you know what I mean? So like. Just so you know that you definitely were not alone. I know that doesn't really help when you were younger, but I hope it helps now.
No, it does because looking back on it, it's like, how could we have really been open and honest with this? Because I don't really think there was somebody that kind of like leading the charge or just saying that's okay. Because a lot of times on TV, especially 80s and 90s, if a character on TV saw a shrink, well, something must be off with them too. Now I'm in therapy at the age of 10 because one of my teachers is clearly seeing like I'm being loud and boisterous, but that's clearly not me. That is somebody that is, having a plea for help. So especially if you're in therapy from age 10 up until
Yeah.
whenever, you're like, no, clearly something is wrong with me because all my other peers are not going to these sessions right here too.
Because I had to get put in counseling as well, right? And they would make it so secretive, but like all my classmates knew that every certain there'd be like I think it was like Wednesdays, and every Wednesday at a certain time I would leave and go to my counseling appointment with the school counselor because my school lucky enough we had one there and she was pretty good. But like they were like, oh, Jasmine's going to the counselor. It's like, oh, Jasmine has another meeting today, like, and it's just also like hiding it, you know what I mean? Where instead of saying, she's going to the counselor, and maybe by saying that, other kids would think, they might not even know there is a counselor at the school, or if they're struggling, they might be like, oh, maybe if I ask the teacher in private, she might help me with that too, instead of like
Yeah.
hiding it from everybody.
Right. Because the pretty girl, the alpha male, the cool kids, they're not going to see the counselor right there too. So you're
Yeah.
already in a separate category. And that way people can use that as ammunition against you to, hey, what's going on with Jasmine? What's going on with Benjamin? And then on top of that, feeling like you were really, really small, like how does that relate to anybody else? You can't relate, or you choose
Nope.
not to because you're like, man, I'm in my own little world right here, and my peers are clearly on a different direction right there too. So in hindsight, you can see where your self worth starts to plummet, And that kind of opens up the thing where, man, I might as well just drink this or smoke this just to seem like I am not just different or I'm closed off. Because especially when you're 17, 18, you feel like you got more control because now you got a driver's license. Now you have a high school diploma. Now you're out with the adults in the real world too. So you kind of feel, I felt like I had to kind of hold my own, not just have one beer, I got to have four, or I got not smoke one blunt, I got to smoke three. So
Keep up
therefore,
with
I got to top it.
everybody. Yeah. I remember being like, there's times where we'd be like smoking pot, and I would like want to stop, and like I would try to cut myself out of it. Like, they call it cutting yourself out, and people were like making fun of me, and I'm like, well, I just physically, I don't think I can handle it. Like, and like they'd be like, oh, you're a lightweight, you're a lightweight. And even just that affected my self-esteem, you know? Oh, I'm sorry, I can't smoke as much pot as you. Like, you know? But and with the drinking, oh, I definitely tried to top everybody with that. That was my thing. I was like, oh, I can drink everybody under the table. Watch, you know? And I'm like 5'2", so I'm like, yeah, I'm smaller than you, and I can drink under the table. And it's like so negative, but you're like so young that you think that it makes you look cool amongst your peers, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's the one aspect where you feel you can get an edge on everybody right there too. And at the same time, if you don't have that sense of self-worth, like where are your limits? Are you really going to put them in place for drinking, let alone anything else? No, no, not at all. So it was one of those things where then I was open to, oh, maybe I'll go with this guy and start boosting some clothes from Macy's, and we'll do a little scam right there too. Or not just I'll go have a beer, like I'll go find a fake ID, and I can go find the 6 liquor stores around our city where I can get that before the age of 21, or I'll find the 2 bars that I can go and make it seem like I can go hang with the adults right there too. So you lend yourself to all these situations where if you had these limits or boundaries or a sense of self-worth or self-love in place, you would have never exposed yourself to that too. But then it's almost like you're in a cycle where it's like, you know what, I've been doing this. Everyone kind of knows that's my character. They know what to expect from me. But how do I get out of that? It was just too profound to me to even ask for help at that point.
And I always just wanted to be like the normal kids, you know what I mean? Like I just wanted to be like the normal kids that got good grades and like did like sports and like were involved in school and things like that. But because of the way things went for me, I went down the way opposite path, and that fueled my issues more, because then my self-worth was even worse, right? And
Yeah.
how do you deal with that? Like you just keep going down that path,
Yeah. It's almost like that's all you've known for forever, even though it's just a short period of time, a year, two
I
years, 3 years
know.
right there too.
And like I did the same thing. I would always we were girls, so we'd wear like promiscuous clothes and stand outside the liquor store and get like guys to go in and buy us booze, or um like have people that were of age like sneak us in the bar from like the back door or something like that. And like being 17 and being at a bar and watching like all the things that I seen at that age is really crazy to me, because I have a daughter and that is not what I want for her to experience at that age, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. And it's almost like at that age too, you see that. I mean, I can look back and just try to see how I was justifying the behavior I had because nobody else is doing this. Clearly not. Nobody else is passing out and waking up and wonder how they got to that room or they got to that place right there. Nobody is doing that. But again, I was doubling down on not sharing my secret with people, but also my mentality was, well, if you went through what I went through, you drink and smoke like me. And it's like, that you're not really justified in your behavior, but you're telling yourself you are. And therefore, that's kind of what's fueling your ambition to keep going down this path at the same time, too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So these are the kind of things that led from age 18 to 25. And and again, it led to a period where I was just homeless for 4 years because my parents just could not deal They're
Oh,
seeing me
that's
pass out on the kitchen
not
floor.
easy. I'm homeless right now due to some negative situations, but like at least I have family to stay with. But to be full out homeless, that's at that young of age is terrifying. It's terrifying to me to be in the situation that I'm in now, let alone that's kind of a situation. You haven't been taught life skills whatsoever. So how are you supposed to function?
Yeah,
That
yeah,
must have been a hard
it's
road, that's for sure.
well, I mean, it was because at the same time, I'm not revealing what has happened to me to my parents. I'm justifying just, just stealing money and just feeling like, hey, I'm me. Like, don't you know that, I was the star trumpet player at school? Don't you know I had these musical ambitions? Don't you know that I'm just kind of like, I think I'm a charming guy on top of that too. I think I can, be gregarious and get along with people. It wasn't enough. It wasn't enough for people to just say what's going on. It was more like, no, we are not dealing with the situation. We're talking with you about this. And at the same time, I'm also seeing like, well, my dad was a former alcoholic himself and didn't really talk about the situations that got him in that too. And I'm kind of just being able to just crash on people's couches and just say, well, I'm a musician and I have ambitions of, making songs and doing this kind of stuff too.
It's the
That's enough to get
lifestyle
you
of a
couch.
musician, right? Like
It,
that tip, like that, especially at that age. That's definitely like what you think of when you think of the musician lifestyle when you're starting out. So it's easy to justify your actions, right?
it is because it's so aspirational because it's not like my peers going to business school. It is not like my peers getting degrees from UC, Santa Cruz, UC San Diego. It's not like I'm going to engineering school. It's more like, hey, I want to just show the world that the thoughts I have in my head can be put down on paper. They can be recorded. They can be songs. They can be something that everyone can emote to. The problem with that is like it's not something that's tangible. It's not something that I can just basically say like it's a life skill. Now, granted, it's an important skill. It's important to know about music because it's a relation. You can play a song anywhere around the world without having any kind of words, and people will still resonate to it. But
Mhm.
the problem is that at that age, it's more like, well, I'm a musician. Got anything to drink? You got a couch for me to crash on tonight? And it's almost like I'm using that as a barter to get what I need in that moment right there, too. So I am taking, 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 taking.
Actually, it's so weird that you said like you said you play the trumpet, right?
Yes, yes. Mm-hmm.
I watch Intervention a lot, and there was I just watched an episode where the guy was a fiddle player, and it was the same thing. He would play at bars, and he would be like, "Well, instead of pay me in alcohol, right?" Like obviously they intervened on him, but it was the same thing. He just thought he was living the musician lifestyle and didn't really see clearly and stuff like that. He didn't have this other stuff that he was trying to push down like you. But I'm just saying that like it's just so random that you said that because I just seen something so similar, right? And it's like sometimes we don't realize how bad we can be until somebody points it out. And like
Yes.
I remember my mom pointing it out to me because of something that I had done. And just thinking like, oh, the embarrassment, all of it, and that was a secret that I wanted to shove down and like I did a lot of stuff that I like would just push down. Like I would go on dates with men for money and stuff like that, right? So that was obviously like a secret that I didn't want anybody to know about, obviously. But that just fueled it, because I'm like, well, I need to be intoxicated to do this. And yeah, I obviously got out of control. And I guess I'm getting off course here, but I'm just saying that like it's so easy to just lose yourself and because of the secrets. And the secrets are the worst part. And yours you didn't ask for. Me, I created my own, and I'll admit that. But yours weren't asked for, so I couldn't imagine the struggle. Like it's like you fighting yourself constantly.
Yeah, no, you do fight yourself constantly. And not only that, to your point, when somebody points out your behavior, you get incredibly defensive about it too, because you're not owning up any aspect of it too. It is like talking about the times you go to Las Vegas, but only telling when you won.
Yeah.
It is so one-sided at that point, because that's not a whole individual right there too. When people are pointing out, like my parents saying, well, do you want to get clean, do you want to go to a meeting, and I just say, look, I'm not an alcoholic. I'm not owning any of that when they clearly have seen that kind of behavior right there too. So when you get extremely defensive, it's almost like, well, that gives me leverage or enough strength to go drink something else or go on another tear or another path of rampage right there too. But it came to the point to where I know that I was about 25 and I was like, I got nothing to show for this. Literally nothing to show for this too. I am still crashing on people's couches. I have a suspended license. I don't even have a job. I am just getting the money I can get from these sessions or from people who are showing pity on me. And I really, really attempted to go make a dry out when I moved from Oakland, or crashing on couches in Oakland down to Santa Barbara, and somehow tried to dry out where, well, I'll only drink yellowtail wine because it was like $6 and that's all I could afford at that point right there
I
too.
used to drink
But
the
still,
cheapest wine ever too, and it's
it is. It is. I mean, you're on a budget and you're like, well, instead of just cleaning up, you're like, oh, I'll just minimize, or just rationalize in my head, oh, $6 is $6. I'll do that too. And I still didn't have a great sense of self-worth because I'm not putting in the work. I'm not seeking out, people or a community. I'm just a standalone person, somebody who feels like I can do everything by myself, but I'm completely dependent on people around me too. So it really, really came to a head when I chose to be the getaway driver for an armed robbery gone wrong. And it was one of those things where I just, look, like you say, I volunteered. I put myself in that situation just thinking I would help out somebody else. And it got me into the county jail to where I'm facing felony evading, conspiracy, and armed robbery, and a gang of time. And it wasn't the first time I've been arrested. I've been arrested for possession, arrested for drunk in public, arrested for failure to appear on a suspended license. So to me, those previous arrests were more like, now I got my chest puffed out because I can talk about being incarcerated like it's the
tough
cool thing to do.
guy. I dated like my daughter's father. He thinks he's a tough guy because he done 5 years in prison and comes in and out all the time. So he thinks he's Mr. Tough Guy, but really that's just still the act mentality, but that even has a certain walk about him that like is like his, I call it the prison walk, you know what I mean? Because I live in a
Yeah,
really opiate populated city, so a lot of them have like that walk because they've been incarcerated, right, for long
yeah,
periods of time. So they all kind of act like that. It's almost like a badge of honor where it should not be a badge of honor, you know?
yeah. Well, but it's also a form of escape because it is I've done this too. It's a way of trying to get one up on somebody else. It's like, but you couldn't be in those same situations as me. I can live in your nice neighborhood. You can't live where I've lived, and you can't do the time that I did in the jail right there too. So at the same time, I am not looking for similarities of people. I'm looking for differences. I am making that divide based on my own experiences and the escapism I have right here in this head right here too. It just came to a point when, again, it got down to that one last cup of Pruno, and I wasn't even sober in that moment. It was just I'm kind of able to look around like I got nothing in common with these people, facing a gang of time, asking mommy and daddy for money at age 25. I got nothing to show for it, and I wouldn't really call it a rock bottom because I was at least was in a place that I had a roof over my head. The
Mhm.
state, the county is paying for me right there too. But that was really just the bare beginning of me just saying I'm done. And I can count February 23rd, 2005 as my first day of sobriety.
And that's awesome. Like it's great that you've been able to like maintain long term sobriety. So how do you do that? Like what do you do to like upkeep and stuff like that?
I kind of go back to when I was in the county jail and, I'm 25. You talked about your brain being fully formed at that age too. And I was fighting a case for about 8 months. And I had seen four individuals talk about, yeah, they're leaving jail, they're never coming back, and they came back. Not only did they came back looking much, much, much worse than before, and almost kind of the look of like
Zombies.
like really droopy. Yeah, it was just droopy and just like no color to their face whatsoever. Not because they've been drinking or they've been really high. It was more like, man, they're in that cycle they can't get out of. And I
They're
think at that point,
mentally they're not.
that they're not there. They're just, and I always use those as reference points, not to put them down. It's like, well, how
No.
do I get out of that? How do I get out of that escapism right there too? So I think really just by learning from other people's mistakes for the first time, but having enough empathy to know, look, this is my fourth time in jail. So it's not like this is a one-off. It's not like, wow, this is something that magically happened to me. No, it's like I'm not too far removed from where that person is. So let me just think I'm in the same boat. I had to look at from similarities. I got into the sheriff's treatment program in Santa Barbara County Jail, where I finally did the steps. Not only did I do AA, I did NA, I did what's called the codependent steps as well too, and then I did
Oh yeah,
another step.
Coda.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. And this was the first time where I think it was like step 5 or step 6 where I was, making my grudge list of people that I thought I had a grudge towards and a resentment. And about 5 or 6 people in, the mentor I had is like, "Do you realize this is all based on the expectations you have in your head?"
Mm,
And it shut me up for a minute because I'm like, "Oh, wait a minute. This is me just perceiving a situation that should go my way, but now I'm resentful of that person for not acquiescing to what I want." So it was really just
exactly.
a sobering way of saying, "Man, I am so not just selfish, I am self-seeking." Here,
It
Jasmine,
really
I got
really shows you
my
your ego around a piece of paper, right?
tough, tough, but again, being in a cell and I'm like, look, let me just get out of this mentality because I don't know if I'm going to prison or not. I really, really don't know. I have a county appointed, the defense lawyer. So it's like, this is not the most the money that I could afford. It's just what's free. I don't know
Yeah.
what kind of leverage I have right here. So let me work on the internal things right here. So by being in the sheriff's treatment program, by applying for a rehab called Delancey Street Foundation, I was able to get accepted. And the judge was very, very program friendly and lenient, knowing that I had 21 people that wrote letters in my defense.
Oh,
It
that's
was
nice.
kind of good leverage. Yeah, because it was kind of like, look, I pled guilty to that. It was like, I'm not going to just say, no contest or not guilty. I'm like, man, let me just own up to this. Let me just say that, okay, yeah, I put myself in the situation. No one put a gun to my head and said, you're going to be the getaway driver. I think by that and by having people look at my character when I was totally sober and the Benjamin they remember from grade school, the Benjamin they remember as, the loving son, or as the loving
Yeah.
friend, that got me into rehab where I actually stayed for 5.5 years. And
Sometimes you
yeah,
need it, especially with what happened to you. Like, I mean, it's more beneficial if like my friend went for 21 days. She had to come home because of her son. She struggles with her sobriety going away because she has a lot of past trauma herself, right? And so she wasn't able to, like, if she was able to go away for 5 years, she'd be a totally different person, like being able to have that actual time to heal and find yourself again is incredible. I can, like, that's awesome.
yeah, thank you. And I can imagine that it's not comparative because that 21 days might have been enough to really just put some reality in that person's head because again they have obligations outside. If you have a son, if you have a family that you got to provide to, it's so much more different. Whereas I was just a single guy, no kids. Like I could use as much time as I need to kind of figure myself out.
Yeah.
And through that I kind of saw like, no, wait a minute, like the expectations I have are all based on my ego. So if I can just retrain my brain and just find a way to not always lead with this and not always think that Benjamin's way is the best way, maybe, just maybe, there's a way for me to kind of grab hold of this.
Even just in daily life, I find like this morning I got in a little tiff with my husband, and I like looking back on it, I'm like, I probably overreacted, and like just owning that and being able to admit to the parts where I know I did wrong help me to not ever like want to pick something up, because I don't like feeling bad about myself, because I'll just go and I'll apologize and accept that I did something wrong, instead of just
Yes.
sitting there pity partying, being like, oh, well, he was mean to me, right? Well, I was mean to him too. So can't say, you know what I mean? So I find that very beneficial to be able to like let your ego go and accept that sometimes we make mistakes, and that if you can understand your mistakes, that you're much more likely to be able to be sober and also get through hard times. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, once you own it, it minimizes the likelihood that you will engage in extreme behavior. It is
Exactly.
not an all or nothing type thing. It is. I call it the equivalent of saying, like, let's say I give Jasmine an air conditioner. Okay, here's an air conditioner unit. Okay, I please keep it at 68 degrees. That is a good mid-range temperature, especially with summertime approaching. That is a good way to keep yourself cool, and we are reducing the amount of heat. Well, let's say Jasmine hits it all the way to 50 degrees. It's like, no, I want to regulate my temperature the way I want to. And it's like, well, I asked you to go to 68 degrees. And then Jasmine says, well, I'm just not going to use the air conditioner whatsoever. It's like, no, no, no. I didn't say I'm taking it away. I'm just saying let's have a good, healthy limit right there, too. And I think by also just admitting this, it's like, okay, I know my limits and my boundaries. Like I exceeded that when I had that tiff. I did too much when I just decided to do whatever it is right there too. But you're right. The first thing is ownership. And if we can just own that, like I had a safety meeting at my work yesterday, and I totally owned, yeah, my integrity gets on people's nerves. I could use a little bit more tact when I talk to people, but I'm bringing that up versus my managers bringing it up to me. And if you use that to lead with that, it's almost like you own that. And it's like, well, no one can use that against you in any way.
Yeah.
It's like, I know I do these things. I'm not excusing myself. I'm explaining, yeah, from time to time, you might see these, little attributes of mine, these idiosyncrasies. But at the same time, I'm not burying them either to where I don't know where the hell you're talking about, or I'm getting defensive about them either.
Because that's the one thing where ego comes in, is becoming defensive, especially at work, is because like other people, well, I worked in the restaurant industry. So if somebody made a mistake, they would always try to throw somebody else under the bus, right? And then it's your ego gets involved, and then you get all like, well, I didn't do that. Oh, well, she said you did. And then it's a whole thing, right? When it's just like, I, if I did do something wrong, because I'm not gonna lie, there was times when I did, I should have just been like, yes, I did that. And I should have said it like you said before it even got to the point of them having to talk to me, because then they would respect me more because I owned what I did.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's not the kind of thing where you own it and then you're like, hey, you got to deal with me. I got anger issues. Now what? It's like you're not bringing
Yeah.
that up right there, too.
No, no,
Can you
it's
imagine? That would be
yeah.
way too much. It's almost like you're wearing that like merit badges from Boy Scouts. It's like, no, you don't want to own that particular behavior right there at all.
No, you just want to say, I'm sorry that I did it and I didn't mean to. It just came out that, like, you know what I mean? Like I said, we're all human, and sometimes we react in ways we don't really mean to, but it's being able to identify it is the thing in my mind, right? But once I
Yes,
identify it,
absolutely.
I feel so guilty until I'm able to like somehow rectify it. Like how you were able to like at work say, well, I do this, I know I don't mean to, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if we all just did that on a level, but again, we don't really have that. We talked about empathy at the beginning, and especially for guys, it's not built in, it's not hardwired.
No.
Because I could tell from me, I kept my secrets and my guard up because I was afraid of my vulnerabilities being picked apart or something that somebody could use against me.
Especially like you said
Whereas,
with men.
yeah, especially for men. So I had to kind of change that about 3 years ago, where there was a situation where I exploded at my wife, like literally. And it's like, she didn't deserve that. And it's like, no, wait a minute. Like, I got to change this. Like, I owned up to that, but it doesn't matter. It's like, I said some mean things, and I'm like, okay, now to get the heat off of me, now I got to go to a meeting, not just one meeting. I got to find a meeting to go to. Well, the meeting that I found, like I went to a few, but like my mentor says, if you like everyone you come across, you haven't been to enough meetings. So
Yeah.
but yeah, but it's true. So somebody suggested, hey, there's a men's only meeting. Saturday is at 6:30. So, 6:30, crap. You're up before God. You're leaving your hot wife in bed. You're leaving your kids behind. You're leaving your dog. You're at 6:30 in the morning. You're with a bunch of other guys, not to bag on wives or girlfriends. You're like, man, as a guy, as a husband, as a father, here are the things I'm experiencing. And
We
really, for the first time, I could get some empathy out of that too, because it's like, man, I know I get my wife and kids' nerves about the dishes, about doing this in a timely order. And I know it's because I didn't have a life of order myself. So maybe I am transposing or transfixing that onto them. And people could relate. And out of that, we started getting more and more empathy. And out of, for a short time, becoming my mom's caregiver before she passed, and then my dad's,
I
that's
did the
really
same
where the
thing.
real empathy came in too. I can't recommend that enough, to where I'm not saying you should do that toward the end of somebody's life, but at least to shadow them for a good amount of time. And like you say, walk a mile in their shoes. That's truly where I got the empathy. And it's only been happening for like the last 3 years, but it's something that's really, really taken in here and in here. So now it almost feels innate compared to the previous 42 years of my life.
Yeah. It is like when my father was sick, he got set he died from cancer, but he had septic shock, and I spent 3 months in the sleeping in the ICU because I was so worried they weren't going to fully pay attention to him because at night they did that, right? So I would sleep there, and I had a new a year old daughter, not quite year old, and I couldn't trust her father, so my mom would take her overnight, and I would stay with my dad in the hospital. And it's like it really teaches you empathy and like arguing with these doctors about pulling the plug because I just couldn't let it go. But then he came back, so I guess I was right and they were wrong. But it really taught me a lot of empathy because in the ICU, other families are coming in and out all the time. Like I spent 3 months there, and so just watching all these people go through all of these horrible, horrible things, it really opened my eyes to understanding that there other people are going through things that we have no idea about, and maybe any judgmentalness bias that I may have still had in me, I was able to let go of because of that, right?
That's awesome. Yeah, that's truly a way of minimizing it, because you're like, man, my problems are so minuscule compared to what that family is experiencing right there
Yeah.
too. And then it's a sobering way of, man, was I really selfish? Like, did I really want to leave 10 minutes early? Like, for some people, they are fighting for 10 minutes for their family right there too. So because of the empathy I had with my parents in place, I was then ready to then be part of this panel I'm at through the men's meeting. It's called SOCHIC, SOCHIC. It is the South Orange County Hospitals and Institutions Committee. Because I realized, no, wait a minute, I got a leg up on most people with the story where I'm owning my experience. So it was a way for me to get into the juvenile hall for the youth guidance center, to
It's
go speak
awesome.
at the temporary shelter and just say, man, like, I have been in your shoes. Now, keep in mind, with juvenile hall, you are dealing with young men from the age of 16 up until 23, because they don't want to just release them out to prison
23.
and stuff
Oh,
like that.
really? I thought it's 18 and you're out with that
Well,
one.
well, here's the thing. But if you do that for a young man at 18 and you send him to prison, he's off to the wolves right there too. So
Oh, yeah.
sometimes, so rather than commute their sentence, sometimes they're like, no, let's give you a little bit more time to get not just acclimated to this, but we don't want you to totally be taken advantage of at 18 right there too.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, so when I do speak to them, sometimes like I have to kind of pinpoint, like, how am I going to get in their shoes? How am I going to get, because some, like you say, you don't want the lab coat type people to just go in there and preach AA. It's not about that. I go in, the first thing I say, my name is Benjamin, and much like you, I chose to get sober in jail. So, okay, I want to create this instant connection. I say, hey, man, the streets I've been in make yours look like a gated community. And a kid would speak up, it's like, what are you trying to say? It's like, man, I've been in your shoes. I
Mhm.
have. These streets that people don't want to hang around or congregate, I've been down the same ones, except they're just 400 miles away. So there's literally no difference right there. And it was the first time where I wanted this empathy to take hold. And it's like, let me just not just hold on to this experience, because the only way I can keep my sobriety, like you asked, is just to give it away freely to those who are still seeking it out.
Well, I like I said, I love different perspectives, and that is a really good perspective because I find a lot of people that get sober find different ways to help others because of the same thing, right? It's like we understand what you're going through. We're a lot less judgmental because of our experiences, and we only really just want to help you and like guide you. And I mean, sometimes I might be a little too pushy with people, but it's just out of my wanting to help you, you know? And I love that you do that with people that are young enough to turn it around, you know, because they're not 40 starting over again. They're still young enough, they can turn it around and still have a normal life, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. It is not something where it will always be a blemish on the rest of their life. Now, when you're 15, 16, that might feel like, man, like my life is ruined, my life is screwed up. It's like, no, it's not. Even high school doesn't last forever. It's just
Yeah, I
sometimes
think it
you got to
does.
have that. For some people, it may be the greatest time of their life, and that's cool too. For some people in the situation where they're like, man, I made not just a mistake, I made one bad decision, maybe two, maybe four, maybe five. Okay, do they want to turn it around? Do they want to be different than the person that was when they first got incarcerated? I'll work with that. I'll work with that. And all we are just doing is just offering up information. We're saying, hey, man, I've been in your shoes. But, at the end of the day, you can't do it for them. You can just simply, show them, here are the tools, here are the resources, here's the big book right here, too. When we go and we talk to these, institutions and we show the panels, like, okay, here's the format I use right there. Who wants to read from chapter 5? So I'll hand out chapter 5 to somebody. Okay, who wants to read about chapter 3? Okay, who wants to read about the 12 traditions? Who wants to read about a vision for you? And it is less about trying to put them on the spot. It's like, hey, let's get you involved. These are not, I mean, this text was written, what, 1933, 1935? There are
I
a bunch
just
of
talked to
old
somebody about
timey words.
that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. With these old timey words, there are a lot of words like, did my grandparents really speak like this? I don't know. However,
Even
like
if
we are doing our
it's
best.
anonymity and having to say anonymity. Oh, that one, whenever you read something at a meeting, that one always gets me. Anonymity.
Try saying that 5 times fast.
Mhm.
It is also showing them like, man, I didn't come up with this book. Not only that, it's not like the men's meeting is just looking around like, what are we ever going to do without old Benjamin? That meeting went on long before I got there too. So somebody is clearly laying the groundwork for you, knowing like, hey man, we've been in your shoes, and if you want what we want, like, here it is, and it's up to you to put in the work afterwards. So that's just something that's been taking hold for me for the last 3 years, and somehow my wife was looking up podcasts because she's a Gemini. She does a lot of talking, which is fine. That's cool. And she came across your name. She's like, hey, this is something that I think you should get involved in. I was like, hey, why not? Why not?
The funny part about her being a Gemini is before I did this, I decided to go back to school, but before I had a business doing divination. So I would read tarot cards and palms and numerology, and I would connect it all with astrology. And I had a few other methods I created with pendulums and stuff. So that it's just funny how life works, eh?
Yeah, it is really, really funny. Yes, yes. So that's the condensed version of my story, so to speak, right there.
Well, the panel that you're on, send me the information on that so that I can put it in the notes and anything else that you want me to share. And I will definitely do that. And do you have any last words for us?
I'm very grateful for this opportunity that you, Jasmine, have provided. It is really, really cool that whatever city you are in, whatever state, whatever continent, whatever country, it's like this is an amazing tool to just be able to connect. I have never met you before. You don't know me from a can of paint, and yet even just talking about just simple terms, we can get like the structure, the outline, the foundation of that person right there too. Now, knowing like we're not necessarily going for like the bathroom or remodeling the kitchen. It's more like, okay, this is the framework of Jasmine's life. This is the framework of Benjamin's life. And it takes a lot of courage to just be able to put yourself out there in the forefront too. I know through this vulnerability, that's where we find true acceptance, true empathy, and true love. So I'm very, very grateful for the opportunity to speak. And I trust that this opens up the door for somebody else who knows that I am not a public speaker. I have nothing to sell. I am not offering up any products right there too. I am just somebody who said, "Hey, this might be a good fit for me." For thank you for trusting me with my time, and thank you for being really, really patient through this process.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing so honestly and bravely with some of the things that you shared. I appreciate it. And I do think that with men, especially, I think that it will help a few of them, think a little differently and maybe not just push it down. You know what I mean? And be like, I'm not alone. I don't need to push this down. I'm going to find a way. You know what I mean? And just through listening to how you kind of found your way also really helps people. And just talking about rigorous honesty, honestly, always, So thank you so much for coming on and sharing, like I said. I hope you have a really good rest of your day. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you again, and you're welcome. And I hope you have a great rest of your day too.
Thank you.
Okay, bye, Jasmine.
Yeah.